3:04 a.m., the Strait of Hormuz was dead black. Inside the USS Mason's combat center, radar screens suddenly flashed a blinding white. A massive fireball had just detonated right over Karg Island. Seconds later, the entire strait erupted. We are seeing IRGC speedboats tearing out of hidden coastal coves. Drones took to the night sky in perfect unison. General quarters sirens started blaring across the offshore American warships. At that exact second, Washington knew they had just ignited the entire choke point. You have to understand, for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, this strait is a fortress. As smoke choked the ruins of Karg Island, Tehran immediately triggered its naval contingency protocol. Over 130 compact fiberglass fast-attack craft. Deadly and stealthy, they surged from coastal caves and underground bunkers along Iran's jagged shoreline. These speedboats deliberately weave through a maze of commercial oil tankers, exploiting those steel giants as physical shields to completely mask their radar and thermal signatures. Skimming just meters above the black water, waves of Shahed 136 drones charged in tight, synchronized formations. Their tactical goal is obvious: saturate the sensors and blind the American fleet with sheer volume. 3:10 a.m. Out on the decks of the Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, the night air grew thick with ozone and sea salt. The Aegis combat system, the fleet's digital brain, was instantly pushed to its absolute processing limits. Across the tactical displays, hostile target vectors started multiplying way faster than any human could count, tracking multiple fast-moving bogies on bearings 045 to 110. The tactical coordinator's voice cut hard over the internal comms. From the Mark 41 vertical launch cells, blinding white flames erupted as ESSM interceptors streaked violently into the dark. These interceptors are our first line of defense, designed to shred that drone swarm before they can close the kill chain. The siege of Hormuz had officially started. This operational picture just went from routine harassment to a full-blown tactical nightmare when Tehran executed this saturation strike. Those Shahed loitering munitions acted as the lethal vanguard. Shielded behind those cheap drones, the IRGC launched their heavy hitters, C-802 Noor anti-ship missiles. These threats skim below 10 meters, virtually vanishing into the heavy sea clutter of crashing waves and salt spray. Even worse, Iranian radar operators actively utilized a shadowing tactic. In our U.S. military analysis, we see them align missile trajectories directly behind massive commercial tanker hulls. For the operators aboard the USS Mason, those incoming weapons simply look like civilian oil traffic right up until the final, lethal second. 3:17 a.m. Inside the destroyer, the tactical action officer watched his scopes completely fill with hundreds of hostile red vectors. The ship's response was a sudden burst of lightning from the vertical launch tubes. Standard Missile 6, the fleet's premier long-range executioner, ripped skyward. Their active seeker heads essentially X-ray the horizon, hunting down those Noor missiles long before they can breach the civilian shipping lanes. But the sheer density of this swarm was totally unprecedented. Through the deafening flak, one Shahed drone, charred, smoldering, engine roaring, somehow slipped right past the outer layer of interceptor fire. It was a terrifying scenario, a jagged black silhouette diving straight at the Mason's bridge. Under 2,000 yards out, the ship's final kinetic defense, the Phalanx close-in weapon system, took autonomous control. The 20mm M61A1 Vulcan cannon roared like a heavy chainsaw. It threw 4,500 tungsten rounds every minute, throwing up a solid wall. That drone disintegrated 50 yards off the bow, blasting a massive column of seawater that crashed violently over the ship's hull. You and I both know what this meant. The enemy had evolved. This was a classic, highly lethal, asymmetric warfare scenario unfolding. The American giant had overwhelming firepower, sure, but it could definitely bleed inside this narrow choke point. 3:22 a.m. While the Surface Action Group fought a desperate defense out over the Gulf of Oman. EA-18G Growlers, our premier electronic warfare aircraft, punched it. These jets were not carrying conventional ordnance. Instead, they brought ALQ-99 jamming pods, instantly turning the electromagnetic spectrum into a blinding digital blizzard. In mere seconds, the entire enemy swarm lost its tactical cohesion. The Growlers blasted heavy jamming across the IRGC coastal frequencies, blinding shore radars, and more critically, severing the encrypted data links between those fast boats. The Iranian swarm lost its queen bee. In U.S. military analysis, this exact digital blackout is when the true predators strike. From amphibious assault decks, squadrons of AH-1Z Vipers, the Marine Corps' top attack helicopters, darted right down to the deck. These Sea Cobras lock into a terrain-following flight path just meters above the chop, specifically to slip under the detection threshold of any surviving enemy radar. Locking their targeting pods, packed with high-resolution thermal optics and laser designators, the Viper pilots initiate a systematic, ruthless purge. They do not waste ammo. They prioritize high-value targets. We are talking IRGC command ships and fast attack craft-packing heavy missile launchers. AGM-114 Hellfire missiles launch from Viper pylons, riding invisible laser beams straight down into the fuel cells of the Iranian vessels. The speedboats vaporize in massive orange fireballs. Those fiberglass hulls offer absolutely zero protection against a Hellfire's tandem warhead. Iran's naval fleet, once a formidable threat, is now nothing more than a scattered, chaotic cluster of isolated targets. Stripped of command, the speedboats scatter in blind panic, literally crashing together or blindly dumping unguided missiles into the Black Sea. Yet the IRGC commanders on shore remain totally blind to the ultimate kill stroke. Cruising 30,000 feet above the slaughter, two F-35 Lightning IIs maintain strict emissions control. These stealth platforms aren't just watching, they are the puppet masters, fusing battlefield telemetry and vectoring it straight to the shooters. The net was tightening. Tehran was about to learn a brutal tactical truth: being seen means being dead. 3:40 a.m. The battle space takes a deceptive pivot. Surviving IRGC fast boats initiate a coordinated retreat, faking a withdrawal toward the jagged Kishim Island coastline. You and I might think this is a textbook Navy victory, but it is actually a lethal ambush. As American destroyers throttle up to press the advantage and push the fleet from the transit lanes, they are being baited into a pre-designated kill box, a geographic choke point designed to turn the terrain into a deadly weapon. Then, the jaws clamp shut, hidden within heavily fortified bunkers carved into the rocky cliffs. Iran unleashes a second wave of Qatar and College Fars missiles. These aren't basic drones anymore. The Qatar is a long-range, subsonic sea-skimming cruise missile, while the College Fars is a smart, anti-ship ballistic killer that strikes from a near-vertical terminal trajectory. 3:58 a.m. 80 fresh assault craft erupt from concealed coves, executing a massive pincer movement to completely encircle the American fleet. Under the sheer weight of this saturation attack, our Aegis combat system hits a critical data bottleneck. Way too many incoming tracks and island radar clutter. This is exactly where London plays its hidden ace. For weeks, the HMS Dragon, a British Type 45 destroyer, has been ghosting the strike group. Operating in MCON Alpha, total electronic emission silence. As far as Iranian scopes were concerned, the Dragon was a ghost. But the second U.S. arrays start choking on the battlespace clutter, HMS Dragon finally speaks up. Its Samson multi-role radar, towering on that massive conical mast, goes fully active. Unlike the U.S. Spy 1 arrays, which suffer from terrain bounce in tight straits, Samson was engineered specifically for this exact littoral chaos. Samson burns through the clutter, painting the incoming Cater Sea skimmers riding just inches above the deck. The launch order goes out. Sea Viper missiles ripple from the Dragon's silver, a 50 vertical launch silos. A rapid barrage of Aster 15 and Aster 30 interceptors tear straight into the night sky. The British destroyer throws an impenetrable steel dome over the coalition fleet, swatting every single Iranian silver bullet out of the air. Let's pause here. The IRGC realizes too late they didn't trap the Americans at all. Instead, they just marched blindly into a highly coordinated joint service ambush drawn up months ago. With HMS Dragon anchoring the shield, Allied forces pivot from pure defense to a punishing counteroffensive. For the IRGC, every ticking minute. The coalition was stalled in the strait, meant another minute to dig in around the strategic prize of Karg Island. But the Iranians miscalculated horribly. They thought they were slugging it out in a surface-level naval brawl. In reality, this entire battle space is being quarterbacked from the high-altitude shadows of the stratosphere. That pair of F-35 Lightning IIs, still loitering in deep stealth, suddenly triggers their multi-mission advanced data link network. These jets aren't just dogfighters. They act as the central nervous system of the entire war. In our analysis, they bypassed jammed coastal comms, beaming high-resolution target coordinates straight to the kinetic strike assets. 4:10 a.m., the precision kinetic strike initiates. Cued by the F-35's electro-optical targeting, a brutal wave of Tomahawks launched from distant subs and the USS Mason starts raining down on the mainland. These aren't random targets. We're looking at a surgical dismantling of the underground command and control centers located in Bandar Abbas. They hit mobile missile launchers hidden inside Kish caves, plus the satellite stations Tehran relies on to monitor the strait. Systematically, their eyes go totally dark. Up on the surface, IRGC speedboat commanders are plunged into an absolute digital void. Their radar screens show nothing but dead static. Comms are completely jammed, shrieking with endless, meaningless white noise. Blinded, deafened, and totally trapped inside a choke point teeming with furious sea cobras and steel dragons. Tehran desperately tried to mount a third attack wave, but their entire operational infrastructure was already vaporized. Precision strikes cleanly decapitated the IRGC's regional command center. The swarm didn't just lose its queen. This offensive hive was being systematically dismantled, brick by bloody brick. By the time the sun cracked the horizon, that feared Iranian fast-boat swarm was entirely neutralized as an offensive threat. It was reduced to burning fiberglass, reinforced plastic debris, and shattered ambitions, scattered across the pitch-black waters of the Strait of Hormuz. You and I are witnessing a masterclass. That impregnable fortress was gutted from the inside out. Hormuz is wide open. It has become a graveyard of burning synthetic plastic and dark oil slicks. The swarm is broken, but any solid U.S. military analysis demands we completely eliminate their capacity to regroup before calling it done. Entering the final act, the HMS Dragon projects an impenetrable, absolute air defense dome. Its Samson radar constantly weaves a tight protective net, guaranteeing any desperate long-range missiles fired from deep inside Iran are intercepted well before reaching our fleet. Operating under this heavy shield, The USS Mason and AH-1Z Viper squadrons push in for the final tactical cleanup. They systematically hunted down every single remaining IRGC speedboat. In these tight, treacherous waters, you don't leave survivors who could mount guerrilla strikes against global shipping. 4:30 a.m. The final hammer dropped. A decisive kinetic strike slammed Karg Island, permanently neutralizing Tehran's foothold in this strategic diamond. By dawn, more than 90 high-value military targets were erased. The strategic message here is brutally clear. In 21st century warfare, sheer numbers are just meaningless statistics if you completely lack control of cyberspace. For the IRGC, this represents a generational disaster. It's the total, catastrophic loss of their naval assets. For U.S. forces, it was just another Tuesday in Hormuz. This engagement proves modern combat is no longer about who pulls the trigger first. It kicks off the absolute second you blip onto an enemy radar and ends violently just moments after detection. When you and I evaluate the wreckage today, the ultimate weapon wasn't the F-35's stealth or the Viper's raw firepower. It was the Samson radar sitting atop the HMS Dragon. The deadliest threat isn't raw explosives, it's the godlike ability to see everything. That Samson radar turned every single IRGC stealth tactic into an absolute joke. In this battle space, exposure equals immediate destruction. In modern networked warfare, the greatest danger isn't actually the literal gun pointed at your chest. It's the terrifying reality that the enemy has already painted you, tracked your vector, and locked on before you even realize they exist. Out in the Strait of Hormuz, being seen isn't just some tactical error. It's a guaranteed death sentence.